All right, all right, all right. Well, we are live now on PantheonRadio.com. So thanks everybody for tuning in on Pantheon Radio. As always, enjoy it, enjoy it, enjoy it. It's always fun. We're looking forward to tonight. I've got a few people here, a few guests that I've not had a chance to talk to before. We're going to throw around some ideas, have a discussion. It's going to be a good time. We're going to try to keep everything lighthearted, fun, respectful, but we want to hear other people's opinions on things as well. So before I get into that, I do want to make just a few announcements. Let me go ahead and double check here, guys. I know this is probably going to mess a lot of things up because we've done it before where I've gone to PantheonRadio.com and I have blown up everybody's speakers. So I'm going to hope for the best here. All right, we look like we're doing okay now. We're doing okay. Got the music turned off. But what I want to do here is pull up the giveaway. So the giveaway was until tomorrow, I believe. Let me double check on that just for everybody. Pantheon Radio always does a giveaway once a month or so. It's always a good time. Everybody that enters the giveaway has a chance to win. I mean, like I said, they do spoof commercials. These things are phenomenal. So if anybody hasn't already, go to PantheonRadio.com. There's a click on the top right hand corner. There's an enter to win here button. If you click that, it'll send you over to the giveaway. But again, if you haven't entered one of these giveaways, make sure you check those out. They're once a month. They're always good. The spoof commercials that come out of those are amazing. So again, just check those out, guys. But besides that, not a lot of news to go on this week, at least. There have been a few streams here recently, showing off BRK, things like that. A lot of cool things happening there. But as far as new information goes, not a lot. So I wanted to kind of reach back into the well here and look through some of the old things that we've talked about in the past or that I've looked through and see what I could come up with. And I actually had a suggestion given by, and I believe it might have been DP himself. Let's see here. Who gave that suggestion? Man, it was such a good suggestion. It was DP. Awesome. So we'll have DP in the conversation tonight, but DP gave me this suggestion of talking about loot, which I've looked in before. So, of course, I said that sounds like a great idea. Let's schedule it for Friday, and here we are, Friday, and we're going to talk about loot tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and bump over here and unmute myself, and we're going to talk to the, a couple people here about looting in Pantheon specifically, or in MMOs. What works, what doesn't, and get some opinions. So hold on one second, guys. All right, so thanks everyone. I kind of gave an introduction, warned everyone about you, told DP, or told everybody that DP is the greatest, and Day is he's second, so that leaves the rest of everyone. But with that being said, I try to make jokes that are really bad, by the way. I would like to talk about loot tonight, and one of the things I want to talk about with y'all and see what you think, at least, because again, I don't know a lot of your opinions. I haven't heard your background, so I'm kind of reaching out to a broad audience here and seeing what I can figure out, what I can find out, what are the options. Back in, I think it was September of 2016, Brad sent out a message on one of the forums, a post about looting, which basically said, look, we know that there is a lot of loot options out there that have been used and utilized by other MMOs. We don't have anyone that's nailed down. Now, this is back in 2016, mind you. We don't have anyone that's nailed down specifically, but he basically made a call out and said, if you have a loot system that you've used in the past and you think it worked very well, it was just perfect, he said, let us know, and we'd like to look into that loot system and see what we could do or how we could utilize a system like that. And I mean, there's a flood of different opinions that came through past that point. So now we're looking at 2018. And one of the things that we saw just in the recent streams, someone pointed out in another form of the post, basically saying that loot seemed very generic. It seemed like there was no loot system in place, nothing at this point. It was just individuals clicking and looting at free will. And basically what happened was the devs came back and said, hey, expect the looting to get more advanced options down the line, but for right now, they just haven't had time to focus on it. It's not a priority in the early testing phases. So looting will become more advanced down the line. So with all of that said, my opinion is actually, I kind of like keeping it simple, but I know that there is a lot of individuals out there that would love to keep it simple so they could take advantage of it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw out a suggestion. and saying, well, if community really matters, if reputation really matters, if you're trying to make a social game with a social aspect, is it really that bad of an idea to leave loot more or less almost wide open? To make it to where if you're in the group, you can loot it. If you loot it, you amongst group members decide how it's distributed. Is that terrible in 2018 going forward? Or is it something that could be taken from some of those, very, very early days of like EverQuest and still utilized today? So I'm going to go ahead. So DP, buddy, you brought this up. I'm going to pick on you and kind of get some thoughts from you first. And then anybody else that wants to chime in, let me know, because this might be a terrible idea. If you played a game that has a lot better idea and they have a loot system that's just been nailed down, I'd love to hear it. I mean, I've played some other MMOs as well, but I've never found one that had a loot system that I consider to be perfect, honestly. So is it so bad to think that the community could maybe establish some ground rules if the devs just left this open for us? Is that possible? What do you think, DP?
Well, yes and no. Okay. As it stands, if it was left to the community, basically it would just be, one setting, which would be greed first, unless the group of, chose to do a need before greed. And that's pretty much the way EverQuest started out. It did have the round robin option, I believe, at the beginning, but I don't remember. It's been so many years.
Did it have a need before greed or anything like that?
No.
In EverQuest, it was basically what you see in Pantheon right now, where anyone can loot the body, and we basically decided on who was going to loot what when it came to certain items and stuff. We would type /random 100 or whatever, and then whoever win would loot it. We didn't have any loot system in place. That came much later.
Right. And, also, the biggest problem with that was, without the gear loot being locked before a roll, or some type of predetermined system distribution, that's where the whole loot stealing and everything else like that became prevalent. There's a lot of different options that can be done. The main thing that I would like to see is some type of system end, mechanism to make sure that everybody at least equally rolls on it, so that someone doesn't just loot it and run.
Okay, so you're saying some sort of roll almost has to be in place for just today's age. It just makes sense to have some sort of mechanism in place that they would have to either roll, or it would be an option to where they couldn't just pick it up and run. That's what you're saying. Right.
Yeah, that way it prevents, people from coming in, joining a group, something drops they want, they loot it and leave. I know in the early days of EverQuest, that was actually a big thing.
Okay. That's fair. Now, I don't know if any of y'all, it seems Vex here in the chat saying that EverQuest 2 had a really nice system. You could roll, need, greed, or pass. You could set up miscellaneous items to Lotto and round robin auto sort to group. Okay, so I'm not sure how all that worked and how all that came together, but did any of y'all play EverQuest 2 by chance?
Briefly, not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we have someone that played EverQuest 2 and like to jump in and kind of explain that to us a little bit more, please let us know. The Discord link is in the bottom of the Twitch stream, so you can see it there. If you're on Pantheon Radio and you want to tune in, you want to ask questions, you want to get involved, we'll find a way to do that. But for right now, really I guess people that are watching via Twitch get a chance to actually be more involved at this point. But again, if you're listening on the radio, you can always jump into the Discord as well and tune in or talk to us. So, okay, with EverQuest 2, it seems like EverQuest 2, I've heard a few people say EverQuest 2 actually had a decent loot system. Now, I played EverQuest, from 99 to 04, and I can't remember when they put like the advanced looting in or kind of ramped that up a little bit. But I do remember in the early days when it was wide open that it really fell on the community's shoulders, and you had to have a sense of trust among your group. Like, for me, it seemed like getting a bunch of random people together was sometimes a struggle, especially if you're going after like specific loot, like really, really, kind of key loot at times, because you never knew what was going to happen. And I always felt a little bit hesitant at times, but really not as much as I think I should have. Maybe I was too young or something, but I always felt a little hesitant when joining a group of, like, say it was a guild group and I was an outsider and they just needed to pick me up for some role. When joining that group, I always felt a little hesitant that I may be kind of pushed to the side when it comes to certain loot that comes my way. Did it ever happen specifically that made me feel that way? No, but I just always kind of knew it was a possibility. So I do like the idea of having something in place that could help out with that, but I don't know what. I mean, has there ever, like, I played WoW from 04 to 2010 pretty much religiously, right after I played EverQuest for those years, and I don't think in either two of those games I ever felt like looting was figured out specifically to a great extent, to where I felt comfortable or safe or like this is the right way to do it. I felt like it could always be better. I mean, is there a game that y'all have played? I don't know if was it Yusha?
Yes.
Okay, so Yusha's new. I've never talked to Yusha before. I don't know what you've played. Have you played another MMO that had a great loot system, or even like a better one than what we're talking about?
EQ2 is the game I played the longest. It had Need Before Greed, round robin, all that stuff. But Need Before Greed, people could still need on it if they didn't technically need it. But if you worked it out beforehand, some people always needed. Just depended. Played Rift and now playing Guild Wars 2 and some other stuff. But no system's perfect that I've seen. So
okay. So y'all correct me if I'm wrong here, but when it comes to Need Before Greed, I've always had the biggest issue with that, as in, like you said, every time I've been in a Need Before Greed situation, it's always come down to we either all decide to just need on it, or we have like a guild group of people that know each other well enough that it doesn't matter if it's need or greed, we can trade out afterwards. Like, things like that happen as well. It's never been an issue with a group of people that I trust, who's looting what, because we could always make sure that it's given to the appropriate people. Even when it was like bind on equip or bind on pickup, then we would still make sure it got to the right person. And it never seemed to be truly an issue, just because that was a close-knit group that I had of individuals that knew each other. So, it was kind of one of those where we worked together as a team. But in Need Before Greed with like random groups or people outside my guild, things like that, I've always run into the issue where if there's a chance to need before greed, it just ends up being people needing 24/7. It's just everyone hits need because you never know. Technically somebody's going to say, oh, I need that because for the money. Oh, I need that for the stats. Oh, I need that for my alt. Oh, I need that because I want it. Like, for a transmog, or, there's no justification for what you truly need and don't. It's all up to you and your opinion. So everyone just needs. So why would you even have a Need Before Greed system in place if it's just going to become unused at that level? I mean, would you not just put a regular role system in place and say whoever gets the role gets the loot?
See, that, if I can cut in here,
yeah.
In Warcraft, I don't know if you've noticed, when it comes to various types of gear, like plate wearers can't roll on leather or cloth or mail, and it goes down the line like that. Clothies can't roll on, chain or whatever for, as need. They can roll greed, and then if everybody passes, then they have, an equal shot at it. But, in a game like Warcraft, where everything is bind on equip just about, it's not long before, you can just run the dungeon a couple more times to get what you were wanting anyway.
Well, yeah, in an instance environment as well, or, an environment where you can, in an environment like that though, like in a game like that, like I think there's only like a specific item, for example, that you really need. You only need that one set, more or less. You don't need a combination of sets or anything like that. So you only need that one set. So once you get that, you're good. Everything else is just subject to your opinion of what you need. But I kind of see what you're saying. Like, I guess what I'm getting at is, why would you even worry about, like, if I'm playing Pantheon And let's say, I'll give you an example, DP. So let's say that I'm playing a, well, okay, let's say I'm playing a paladin. I'm Day. So Day, we're playing a paladin. Hey, congratulations, we made it. So we're playing a paladin and some mail drops. And now I have played on, you know, I'm in my early 20s, maybe early 30s. I've got like a low level rusty bronze, ugly, whatever rusted breastplate on. And this mail piece drops and it actually has more stats that I need than the, like, you know, it has like one strength, one stam or something like that, which is better than my no strength, no stam, only AC breastplate. And the AC, because it's a higher level item, is actually about the same as the breastplate is. So in total, it's a much better item for me. Now, let's say that for that, it's a mail item. It's mail, it's chainmail or whatever it is. If you're going by the WoW standards, I would not be able to roll on that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So in my mind, that doesn't make sense to me because that item may be better than what Day has or what I have at the time, but yet I can't even roll on it. Now, like you said, it's not bind on pickup or bind on equip probably, so it's, you know, it's probably tradable, which doesn't matter who rolls on it and who gets it. It's somebody's going to be able to give it to me or Day or whoever the paladin is. But I mean, I just that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it seems like a system that could just get in the way almost more than anything. I mean,
yeah, it definitely has its drawbacks, and, you know, and that's definitely one of them. When it comes to something like that, you know, do you have a mail wearer in the group? You know, that can benefit from that. You know, because if you do, then they will get much longer use out of it, depending on the type of loot drops and the rate at which loot drops in the game. You know, like EverQuest, for example, you know, until you get to like, let's just say, you know, you're starting out, until you get to Unrest, for if you're over in Fadar, for example, you're not going to get anything but cloth, leather, or leather until you get to Unrest, and then you're going to start seeing the chain and the plate drop. You know, so you know, up until that point, yeah, I can really see, you know, a plate wearer or mail wearer rolling on the leather and vice versa, you know, and going basically, you know, the plate wearer rolling on stuff also. You know, but there's going to be a, you know, from what I've been reading in the forums, you know, there's a big heated discussion, you know, on the forums between the, you know, need before greed and straight greed everything or need everything. Agreed. And, you know, it's really hard to, you know, take a stance on it because each side has valid points. And, you know, I know me personally, I prefer the need before greed, but at the same time, you know, like the people that say, you know, need on everything, you know, they do have a point where, you know, if they're in a dungeon where nothing drops for them, that's going to be their only reward from that dungeon is something they can get to sell for something they can wear. And so it's really hard to call. And, you know, that's one reason why I wanted to talk about this, because, you know, there's so many different viewpoints on the basically what systems you can use. And, you know, it's going to cause a lot of problems with people in, you know, in the game. You know, it won't be, you know, heated problems, but, you know, it'll definitely cause, you know, some hurt feelings along the way somewhere.
Well, okay, so I haven't picked on Solitude yet, and you know I'm going to have to. So you were saying that, I'm reading this Solitude in chat here. Vex is saying that the EQ2 loot system was much more complex because it was not just gear, it was quest items and stuff too. And people could lie about doing the quest and just sell the item. But you said that EQ2 did smart loot as well at lower levels. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so they implemented a little bit of the smart loot for the lower levels as far as like the spells go, the master spells and all that. So where when you looted it, it was specific to that class, and then you could then roll need on that. That's kind of what they did, but they didn't go past a certain level on that.
Okay, so once it got to a certain level, that it just stopped that altogether.
Yeah, it
So it
went
almost
back.
switched over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it went back to the normal way, but Vex is right about that with the, with the loot system that they had there. It was a great concept, but yeah, I mean, people would just click need on everything, and pretty much it kind of defeated the whole purpose of having that.
Gotcha. Now, okay, I have a question for y'all. So I read some things on the forums, and people suggested that potentially setting up individual loot was really the only way to go to solve this. And I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I'm not big on that myself. I want to almost say I'm strongly against it. Maybe I'm the only one, but basically the gist of the idea was that when a mob dies, everyone in the party has their opportunity to loot. So they would all loot. Let's say if it had like 6 copper on it, everyone would be able to loot and get their 1 copper, or they would be able to loot and get whatever their loot was for that drop, for that mob. And then that would also mean that if, like, for example, we had 3 tanks in the group or something like that, each tank would get their own individual loot off of that, and it would be random. So it would be like getting loot 6 times for 6 different people off 1 mob. And
See,
that didn't make sense to me. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was completely against it, to be honest with you, but I wanted to bring it up because it didn't make sense to me, but they were saying that's the only way to solve it. And I was like, I don't think it's solving anything.
That would frustrate me more than, just the regular loot the way it is.
The only way that would be halfway feasible is if everything was no drop, and it was no drop, because otherwise the market would be flooded with junk of stuff people didn't want, and would make it kind of pointless.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing here, I'm reading in chat, it would be terrible for the economy, but it would solve the problem of like loot distribution. I mean, I'm not sure. That's a tough one for me because, again, like I said, just that individual loot. It seems like to me you're going to have 6 times the amount of loot potentially, and then if you have tradable items, let's say that Day loots a ring of like some mail armor, and I'm a shaman and I want that mail. Well, that's his loot. He has to be willing to give it up to me, or I have to just say, "Oh, great, he got the piece of gear that I really need." I mean, it could be one of those situations where he's like, "I got it. Give me 10 gold. I'll give it to you." It's like, what? I mean, that's not to me encouraging like community interaction, like social gameplay. That's basically just saying that you're kind of in a group, but you're doing your own solo thing as well. Like everything is in your control, you're solo, and you can be as greedy as you want to be, and really it's fair gameplay at that point if it's individual loot, to me at least. So, and by the way, hey Convo. Appreciate you stopping by, buddy. So for everybody that wants to know, Convo's gonna make sure that everything about loot is perfect. No, I'm playing. I don't want to put that on you. He's gonna send me dirty messages later. But okay, so I think we're all like, Day, do you have any opinion on that, like individual loot? Because I think you and I mean,
I don't like the need, greed, or pass system that's pretty much in any game nowadays, because you're going to have people that's going to roll need no matter what. You're going to have people that actually takes the time and look at the item and be like, "Oh, okay, I don't need that. Maybe someone else will." So, I'll roll greed if it's just going to be, no one needs it and it's just whoever. Some people will pass, but you're also going to have people that they're going to ignore that system, and the rest of the group is going to be sitting there for 5, 10, 15 minutes, like, why haven't you rolled that? And they'll be like, "Oh, okay, just a minute." So I have not seen that system in a scenario where it works. I think the way EverQuest originally had it was a good system. The problem with it was time consuming towards more in game. So something that I would like to see is the option that like junk items or just basic items. Round robin, just you click the body, it's automatically passed around and stuff. If it's like an item, let's just say a green level and higher, whatever the lowest setting is, it stays there. It's not automatically divided. And then let the party decide how to handle it. Because if you have someone who accidentally loots it, if it's tradable, it's no big deal. If someone loots it and it's not tradable and it was a mistake, they'll let you know. But if someone does it too many times, word spreads and people will start, oh, I don't want to group with him, he's a ninja. I think that is probably a better system, but there needs to be something implemented that's going to take some of that time-consuming parts out of it. Having round robin on just regular items, I think, is a good idea. When it comes to like raiding and stuff, I think a lot of times we used to do master looter, and the master looter would, have everyone roll and decide where the loot was going, and then he would assign it. Then he would have to, unclick the body. That person have to run up and click the body to loot it. I think, why can't the master looter just right click it and assign it to someone, and then right click it afterwards and give it, and that item is automatically put in that person's body? It's a two-step process. That way, if he messes up the first one, he still can go in there and reassign it.
Okay, so I got a question for you on that. So so let's think of master looter, for example. So like let's say it's generic. Let's say that it's wide open, it's just like it is now, but you're able to assign roles, meaning specifically one person can loot. Is that just to the guild leader or to the group leader? Like, is that just to the raid leader or the group leader, or can you assign it?
Whoever in EverQuest, whoever was assigned master looter, that was his role.
So they can assign it.
The body. Okay. And that was his task in the raid. He was the one making sure he was looting the bodies, and if anything important dropped, he would call it out and stuff. We had a lot of class channels in our guild, so if an item dropped and it was clearly for a paladin, then it was announced in paladin chat, and paladins would roll, and whoever was the class officer would let that person, the master leader, know who won the role. I think leaving it up to the player base to decide how loot is assigned and what to do with and stuff, I think that's probably a better system compared to what's already out there. But there needs to be some tools implemented to kind of decrease the amount of time that it takes, because I remember 20-30 minutes on raids just assigned just for deciding what to do with loot off one boss. There needs to be something in there to kind of speed that process up.
Well, I mean, especially depending on the raid size, like that could be a whole nother factor as well. Like there's a whole lot that might go into that time that it takes for loot. But
yeah,
I do agree with you. Like finding some way to simplify it. I mean, in any way you can, but without putting all the just kind of restrictions up in place. So later, Combo. Appreciate you stopping by, buddy. But yeah, I think that for me, like one of the things I've noticed in, like, okay, for example, here, I'll give you this example. I've heard a lot of good things about the EverQuest looting system now, that like takes out a lot of the repetitive looting and stuff like that. It makes it easier once you get it set up and stuff, like, actually get it set up. But for me, it's still, I've looked into it a little bit, but I've not like dug into it. And it's still to this day, even after playing, a few weeks, I still confused at times by it. Like I'm still frustrated by how it's set up. I'm still frustrated by the different things. And I hear over and over again, yeah, but if you learn how to use it, it works really well. But I mean, I'm just thinking of it like as a normal user. If something like that was in Pantheon, that was just not intuitive. Like I couldn't just jump into it and just know, okay, this is how it works. Not thinking about it, not really having to read on it, not having to study it. Like something that such as loot, that would be frustrating to me. That I would have to actually learn the loot system and things like that. I would much rather just be like, look, just open it up. Let me get what I get. Let him get what he get. Whatever. We'll talk amongst each other and figure it out. Like, for example, in EverQuest, I had a trouble even getting the loot to go to somebody. Like I couldn't figure that out. It was just sitting there in kind of this limbo for what seemed like forever. And it was frustrating to me because it was like, well, who's getting the loot? Whom we're waiting on? Why is it not going anywhere? What is, like, all these questions are coming up to me that I think if I'm a new player to a new game, you know, I love EverQuest, so I'm willing to kind of look over that. But if I'm new to a new game, like that's a frustrating piece to me that I'm having to deal with. So I like the idea of just kind of open up and almost just like a roll system. I mean, just a simple like, hey, if you want to roll for this, hit roll, or you know, something like that. But again, like you said, people can just overlook that or ignore it, and then all of a sudden you got the thing sitting in limbo now again. I don't know. I struggle with this concept because there's so many ideas out there, and some of them seem good, some of them have their drawbacks, but like, you know, you've all said, there's like little things here and there that don't work with it, or that are frustrating, or that just never made sense. And to me, I guess it all comes back to the most simplistic type of loot is just to kind of open it up, and like you said, make it to where you can assign a master looter or something like that. Make it to where if you wanted to, it could be a round robin, or just something simple where you could set a few loot rules yourself if you would like. But even then, and I'll be honest with you, even if you have it to where you get like a round robin, or you can set like just an order or something like that in place. If there's any other options, I've seen people do this as well. They have to announce what their loot style is, because when going into a group, people again will not feel comfortable if it's anything besides what they're comfortable with, whether it be round robin or not. You know, people are like, I'm not sure I trust you as the, you know, as the one looting everything. Like if you have master loot turned on, I'm not sure I trust you looting everything, so I want it to be round robin. People will actually decline groups that way. Do I think it becomes a problem in the community? Not so much. It's just little things like that you see. It kind of irks me when people won't join your group because of the way you're doing loot, or they won't join your group because of, you know, something to do with that nature, that fact. And then again, you know, it also makes me, I'm in the same boat, a little skeptical when I go into a group that I'm new to and they're all in the same guild and they're like, oh, we got master loot turned on. And it's like, okay, great, but I'm the only one not in the guild. So what does that mean for me? Are you going to be fair and, you know, about this, or I'm going to have to find out the hard way when the one item that I wanted that to drop has a 0.02% chance of dropping finally drops, and then all of a sudden, because, you know, you have the loot and control, you're like, oh, this guy in our guild, he's not even in our group, but he could really use this, so I'm sorry, buddy, you can't get it. You know, that's the type of situation that might come up after like weeks of grinding something that could really, you know, could really make or break an experience for at least a night or a week. But I mean, that could really have some hurt feelings. And, you know, again, you can go for the good guy, the bad guy in that situation. You allow the community to make the call. You allow the, you know, that person to kind of broadcast what happened and how it happened. And if the community accepts that as an answer, then maybe that guild is frowned upon. And, you know, maybe that hurts them and their reputation. And then at the same time, does it even matter? Is that guild so big and powerful that it matters? You know, there's all this that comes into play. So I've never found a loot system that's 100% perfect, but I've always thought, you know, leaving it in the community's hands, even if they want to make themselves a bad guy, is better than putting it in the outside their hands, where now it's just, you know, random luck instead of maybe a conversation amongst people. Maybe it's just random luck to who gets what. So I don't know. I guess I'm in the same boat that a lot of people are. I go back and forth on this a lot. And I mean, I keep hearing the EQ2 had a really good system in place, but I guess I'm not understanding it fully. You know, okay, so I'll ask this, Solitude. If I'm in a raid group and EQ2 is, you know, basically if I'm in a raid group and I'm a part of a guild, or I'm actually not a part of a guild, but I'm in a raid group with the guild because I'm you know, friends with them and they needed my assistance for the night. And, you know, it's been agreed upon that if an item drops, I'll be able to roll on it. Is there an easy way in EQ2 to do that, or is it just really depend on them doing a master loot and then doing the roll?
Yeah, it was usually the master loot and doing the roll. I don't think it was ever in a raid where the raid leader or the guild leader didn't determine that, or with a roll, you know, whatever class needed it.
Okay. Day, you said you had your hand up?
Yeah. Something that I've recently heard that I thought was a pretty good idea was some of us was talking earlier with the Pillars of Eternity 2 game that just came out. It brought a new idea that sparked something that could be done in Pantheon. Maybe when you're in a group and or raid, there's a secondary inventory system called the party space or storage or whatever, and how much you can carry, like in terms of weight, is defined by everyone in your group / raid. And you know how you're in raid, you're trying to push forward, and you got time to loot and stuff. That you could just leave stuff on the ground or leave it on the body, and right before the body pops, it would go into that storage. So when you get to the point where you've got a moment, you've got time, you're in a safe spot and stuff, you can open that up, and then you can do stuff with that loot. Like people can choose to roll and whatnot if they want something. If you go over the capacity, then like the group would get like a debuff, like you're carrying too much or something. So it would let you know you need to get to a spot soon and deal with this because you're starting to suffer some kind of debuff because you're carrying too much. And I thought that was interesting. Like players have their own carrying capacity, but then you have this secondary stash that is defined by the carrying capacity of the raid or your group where stuff can go. And then when you've got time to deal with loot, then you just click this little button that's in the corner, or window scrolls out or pops out or whatever, and it's the loot that your party has collected. And let the players can go in there and be like, oh, I want to roll for this. I don't want to roll for that. Just keep it a basic, roll and stuff. The only problem with that is you'll still have people that be like, oh, I'm just going to roll on everything. But I thought that was a nifty idea because that takes away that time-consuming element when you're trying to push forward or trying to get to a certain spot. You can just kind of do that, and then when you get those moments of break, you can deal with the items and stuff.
So, okay, so I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure that wow, that sounds like, yeah, I get the gist of it, but it sounds like something that could get really kind of become somewhat of a nuisance very quickly, more so than anything. Just because I know I'm a procrastinator, so I could be like, all right, well, just wait. And then all of a sudden I'm like halfway through the raid or something of that nature. I'm in kind of a weird spot and I'm getting this message saying that my, loot is too much. I've got to deal with that. So now I've got to stop the whole raid and deal with this giant inventory of items. Instead, I could just go through it little by little throughout the raid. I mean, I guess it gives you options, but it sounds a little bit too much to me. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you got a system in place, like I said earlier, where like junk and normal items and stuff is automatically split among the group, when you open that up, that's just going to be like green items and above is what I'm going to refer to as. And then players can go in there and they can decide roll or pass. And then the game automatically rolls and it automatically gets assigned to someone. So it takes it out of that and gives it to that player. And then frees up space in that stash.
That's an interesting concept. One thing that, they could do to expand on that to make it even better, like if you're grouping in a dungeon with folks, have all the, the good loot go into, that group bag, basically. And nobody gets it till the group breaks up or, there's X amount of loot in it, whatever. Okay. Then when they're ready to distribute loot, everybody puts in order, what they want the most out of that loot. And then it'll randomly, then it'll split it round robin basically between everybody. That way everybody gets, boss loot without everybody rolling on it. Because I know I've been in groups where the same person won 5 times out of, probably 8 rolls, and I got nothing for, 5-6 hours in a dungeon. So, that would be kind of cool,
So I don't mind the idea. What happens if that person has to leave early?
Yeah,
well, then that's when the loot would be distributed.
Okay.
What happens if a person gets disconnected and can't get back on? I mean, they're that's the other factors that you got to think about and stuff. I mean, just leaving it there and you, the party, or you, the raid, get to decide when to roll on it. Leave that up to the players to do.
Well, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, if there's a time where, you know, you get disconnected or something happens, like, yeah, I get what you're saying. But I guess what I'm coming back to is, like, if we're just talking, let's just talk group, because in raid, I think there's a lot of different things in raid that could happen. Like DKP could be in like guild groups and like all kinds of stuff. So let's just talk like a single group, like a 6-man group. Let's focus on that for a minute.
All right. Before you go any further, let me go into a little bit more details. So, okay. Let's say as a paladin, I'm able to carry 50 pounds. It's not taking into consideration what I've already carrying. That's just what I can carry. Let's say DP can carry 75 pounds. Saicred, you can carry, let's say, 60 pounds. Solitude can carry 45. It's, you know, that's the max capacity. And that stash is the combined capacity of all of us. It's not taking into consideration what we're already carrying, just our max. So it adds all those up. Now, that's the maximum we can carry before we start in having a penalty. Maybe the penalty is like a movement. We move a little bit slower. As more stuff gets in there, you know, that movement speed gets slow. We start getting slower and slower and slower. You know, but it's got a big enough space that it's going to take a while to fill up.
I mean, I guess, but I don't know how I feel about that. I see what you're saying. I mean, that makes sense, I guess, to a point. It's just, okay, what if I just want to get rid of some of those items? I mean, can I just stop it? I mean, can I just start throwing stuff out that I don't want?
I mean, if you don't want to roll on it, you can open it up anytime and say, I don't want to roll on this, don't want to roll on this, and whatever.
But am I impacted by that weight?
It's basically a party stash. So, yeah, you're a factor into it.
So if someone in the group just doesn't want to deal...
you're going to, whenever it starts getting full and you see that debuff up, that's going to be like the indicator, or maybe there's some kind of indicator when you're getting close to full to let you know, hey, you need to kind of find a break here soon and kind of deal with this. And then, you know, just have it where a window where you can roll or pass, and then that loot automatically gets sorted and it frees up space and stuff.
I mean, I guess it's just, yeah, it sounds, I was about to say the same thing, Solitude. It just sounds like it could get complicated, and it sounds like I could be sitting there yelling at somebody that they need to roll on something because we're walking instead of running now. And, you know, it goes into that kind of boat of, it's one of those systems where if it's a roll system even, and people aren't paying attention or not doing anything, it's sitting in a limbo. Well, it's kind of the same deal, and now I'm having to yell at people continuously because our monk can't carry much, or, you know, we don't have a lot of weight that we can carry for that run particularly, and my monk's trying to pull, and he's running half speed. So I'm consistently yelling at people and having to throw items on the ground or something like that, or have people loot it and then throw it on the ground themselves. Like, maybe
there's an option to throw something out, and if everyone clicks on that option, it gets thrown out. But if there's one person in the group that wants that, and everyone else says, I want to throw this out, then that loot goes to the person that wanted it. You know,
okay,
there would be that option to throw stuff out if no one wanted it. But, you know, you can't go back and make a decision afterwards because the body's despawned, it popped, now the loot's in your stash. It would be basic storage system, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it. I don't know. That one sounds a little complicated. I'm going to have to sleep on that one. It just sounds like too much to me. I mean, I like the simple social aspect of you know, the game in my mind. Like when it comes to looting. Like, I want to keep it simplistic because I want social interactions to be very keen, whether they're good or bad. I think that really is what makes or breaks the community part of the game. So, with that in mind, I'll ask this question. I want to go a little more specific with an idea. So, Yusha, right?
Yes.
Okay. What have you looked into Pantheon? I mean, I don't even know, honestly.
Yeah, I've got alpha.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. So, when you're thinking about Pantheon, class are you thinking about doing yourself?
Probably a chanter and a monk.
Okay.
Those are options.
Okay, so let's look at an enchanter, for example. So there's things called, or there's like abilities that can drop or scrolls that can drop, for your class in a dungeon. That's something that's been out there in FAQ under like prime scrolls and such. So let's say that a scroll drops for he's gonna kill you. Solitude. I'm gonna pick on him. I hope you don't mind, buddy. But
No.
so let's say that you're an enchanter and a scroll drops and we'll say it's like a higher tier mez for you. But it just happens to be like one of those rare finds. It's very, very expensive, very, very lucrative to have yourself. It's one of the items that if you were to obtain it just on a whim, if it was to drop somewhere and you were to grab it and didn't have an enchanter to give it to, then you could sell it for a good bit of money. So let's say that you're in a group with a bunch of random people you grouped up with for the night. You're having a great time. This scroll drops. It's a very, very high value item. It's very rare. And you just happen to be in one of those groups where those guys are like, hey, I could use that 1,000 plat. And I know that you're an enchanter, but I don't think it's fair that a 1,000 plat item dropped and you get it and we don't get a chance to get it ourselves. That to me makes no sense, but I'm sure there's gonna be people out there that makes sense too. So, do you think it's reasonable for an item that's specifically only allowed to your class to be obtainable, such as like an ability to be obtainable by other classes as well? Or do you think that, hey, that's part of the social gameplay that I'm expecting? Hopefully I'm not in a group like that.
Well, I don't know how it would work if they made it so that you'd actually have to have the class to loot it. I haven't played a game where that's ever been a factor in anything, I don't believe. But I wouldn't choose to group with them if that's the way they do it. They would rather sell it than someone in the group that could use it having it. I just wouldn't group with them again. But it may be the way they do things, and some people may like that. But I would choose not to group with them over that. But if it's an item that you need, like a spell, a specific spell, I've always played with people similar, or people normally that had the similar viewpoint that if your class could use it, you were the one that got it. Now, if I already had the spell, then it'd be a random, whoever gets it, do what you want. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, and you might not know that they're that type of group until it's too late. And I completely agree with you. I would try to stay away from them. Once you know, now you know better. But,
yep.
Again, I guess it goes back to the question. If I'm talking about loot, like if it's class-specific items, I mean, when it comes to loot and Pantheon, does anybody here agree that you shouldn't have the ability, or does anyone agree here that those type of items shouldn't drop unless there's that type of class within the group?
Yes.
So Solitude, you think if it's an enchanter scroll and we don't have an enchanter in the group, it should never drop off the mobs that we're facing?
Well, I'd prefer it not to.
Okay. And why is that, though? I mean, it could be something you could sell for 1,000 plat on the market. I mean, it could be huge profit for you if that drops. But what would your thinking behind that be?
I think for those who are out there playing and, doing it currently, I'd just rather see them get the rewards than even to sell it. I mean, yeah, the plat's great and everything, but it's also great to get those when it's like instant gratification, kind of.
Okay, well, I think I'm misstated. So I'm thinking of, I'm in a group and we don't have that particular class, and their scroll or their spell or ability is able to drop, and I'm able to actually obtain it off the loot and then go to the market and sell it. Now, we don't have anybody with that class in our group. So does that seem like it's, I mean, maybe Day or DP, y'all have an opinion on that as well, but does that seem like something that's fair to y'all? I'll tell you what my opinion is, and maybe y'all see I'm completely wrong on this. I don't like that thought. Like I would rather just have it to where it's random, period. But on the flip side of that, I kind of like the thought that if I'm in a group, I'm in a dungeon, I'm in an open area, and there's a chance for abilities to drop off certain mob types, I like the idea that potentially, if an ability does drop, that ability will be for somebody that can use it in the group. Meaning, if we don't have an enchanter, we won't see an enchanter scroll drop. Maybe we have a wizard. And maybe there's maybe we have a wizard, not an enchanter that day. We'll never see enchanter scrolls drop that day, but we have not really a higher chance to see wizard drops. But instead of a scroll dropping that's for an enchanter, we would see a scroll that dropped for a wizard. So, if you wanted to find more, like if you needed certain spells or scrolls or something like that, it's something that you as an enchanter would have to go out there. You would have to either choose, whether you want it or to sell it, or if you get it, then you have to go out there and do the same thing over again, and maybe you get it again, and now it's becoming a sellable item, something like that. So, let's see here. What was that, Vex? There's no way to see spell quality for others? Oh, the problem with EQ2 system like that is, okay, I got you.
I think it should drop, but I think there needs to be some defining factors. Like if it's a quest item for that class, I think it shouldn't drop unless that class is there. When it comes to like quest items and stuff, you shouldn't see it unless you're on that quest. I feel like otherwise, if you're not on that quest and you're not aware of it, to you, it's just going to be another random item in the book. So I say no, you shouldn't be able to see something along those lines unless you're on that particular quest.
So non-quest item does. Non-quest item.
Non-quest items, yeah, I think it should drop. Maybe it's a little bit less of a drop rate unless you have that class in it. Than if you have that, like let's say an enchanter scroll can drop off a mob, and we don't have an enchanter scroll in our group, it can still drop, but it's going to be at a much lower rate. But if we have an enchanter in our group, then it would be a normal drop rate.
Ooh, see,
we can still get it, but we're not that aware of it. So when it does drop, it's going to be like, oh, we've just been made aware of it. But if we have an enchanter in the group, then we're aware of it, so we're looking out for it. So then I don't know, it gives me the impression that when it drops normally, it's like, okay, we're aware of it. Whereas if we didn't, we're not aware of it.
Okay. So
personally,
yeah, go ahead.
When it comes to spells and abilities, I would rather see them no drop. That way the actual person has to be there to loot it rather than being able to put it on the market and sell it. Because that way you're forced to go out and go to this dungeon if you want this ability. That's my personal opinion. I know it's not a very well liked one, but
no. I mean, I'm just thinking it through. I'm thinking of crafting, for example. Maybe we have Inscription, which is our scribe, which is able to, put together spells and stuff like that. So there's going to be maybe something on the market like that, I would assume. Already, if something's ever to drop, especially let's say that I'm in a dungeon and there's a rare mob that walks by, and that rare mob I know has a high chance, or even just a chance to drop a very rare scroll or ability, but it's not for any class that we have in the group, but we know it's of high value. I mean, that's a high value target, and it's something that we could either get for somebody in our guild, or it's something we could get to sell on the market. But I mean, if I take the possibility of that out of the equation completely, to me, it makes the value of that mob almost worthless. I mean, if that's like the one true item on that mob that makes that mob worthwhile, then for everybody else that doesn't have that particular class in their group, that mob no longer becomes of value. So I don't know. I'm on the flip side. Like, I'm leaning both ways here. Like, I see what you're saying, but I'm kind of leaning towards the part of it just drops. It is what it is. it'll drop, it'll not drop. There's no higher chance for it to drop if you have group members. Let's say if you have an enchanter or something that, in your group, there's no higher chance for the scrolls to drop for that enchanter. But at the same time, if you don't have one, there's no lower chance. So if you get it, it drops, then you roll on it and take it to market or take it to the guild and you find a guildie that needs it or something like that, or you take it on the market and you make a profit. I just think that as far as like economy goes, like if you have a really low drop rate on high valued items such as that, and they're limited to where you have to be in the group, I just see that as being a, I don't know, I see it as being something that's somewhat difficult at times, but also I see it as being something where it takes away a little bit of the trade that's possible in game. Meaning if I'm an enchanter, I run across a Dire Lord ability that's just epic, and I'm able to roll on it and I receive it because we don't have one, and I go to market and I see somebody on market that has an enchanter ability that's epic as well, and I hit them up and I say, hey, would you like to do a trade? I'll give you this, you can sell that, or you can use it. Maybe they have an ult that's a Dire Lord and they're like, oh, that'd be perfect. That would work out perfectly for me. So I see like potential for the economy and social interaction and things like that to come from that, because it kind of leaves it open. But I do get what you're saying. If you don't have that person in the group, it also makes it more it makes it more worthwhile to get other people into the group. I just see certain mob types maybe becoming, I guess you could say, less valued because of certain group types that you have.
See, we're talking like kind of on a broad scale. So taking it back a step, if it's a truly epic spell, we're talking about an epic spell. I feel like since it's at that high of a level of a spell, yeah, the enchanter has to be there to get it. I don't think something that powerful should be sold on the market. But the other stuff, it could be a mix and match. Some spells are tradable and sold on the market. Some you have to be there. Maybe and some of them it drops for anyone. But if that class is in your group, it will drop normally. I can see a mix and match of both of them. But if it's a truly epic or truly powerful spell, I don't think I would want to see that on the market. That, to me, that is something that the enchanter has to go out there. He has to quest for. He has to do and earn himself. Such powerful spells should not easily be found just by throwing money at it. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. No, that's fair. I mean, like you said, I would hope that the drop rate on it would be so excruciatingly low that, if it, like I said, if it's a quest item, it's a completely different story. I agree with you 100% on quest items. But if it's just a random dropout in the world, to me, I think it should be wide open. So, interesting. You totally get the economy part. So what was that, Solitude? I won't read it. What was that?
Oh, sorry, I forgot I was here. I was just saying, if I have real life restrictions and time restrictions like that, I'd hate to spend hours, out in a group or a zone or trying to get something, and everything that drops I can't use. So I get the economy part of it, which is great, but then I need something, to reward my time, I guess I say, or, to make me feel like I've accomplished something or done something.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that drops and it's truly epic, it's truly powerful, I don't think it should be sold on the market. And for me, that means that enchanters got to figure out where it drops, where they can obtain it, get a group together, and we go help that enchanter get it. Whereas if it's anything less, maybe it's a mix and match of different systems. Maybe some spells, yeah, they drop and you sell them on the market. Some enchanter has to be in the group for it to drop. Maybe, just different ideas. Because, I think that plays for different social interactions. Yeah, you have some spells you could just sell on the market to make some money. Some of them you're actually going to have to get a group together and go do. If it's truly epic, then you might need to get a bunch of people together to go do or something. And that's social interactions, whereas otherwise you just go to the market and buy it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm gonna start wrapping up the podcast here. So I just want to kind of go back to the loot thing. I'm just going to ask each one of you kind of your opinion. I'll give you, I guess, we'll give 3 options here. So I'll give you generic. There's no rules, more or less. It's just wide open, kind of like, you know, what we see today in the streams, where anybody can loot, anybody can pick up the items. Basically, the only thing you might have is like an auto split option, where or a master loot. Very, very generic though. So you have the generic route. Then you have the need versus greed system that's in place. And then you have the, I don't even want to put individual loot in there, but I'll put it in there. So if you had to choose like between one of those 3, we'll just say between one of those 3. And I guess, you know, Solitude and Yusha, that you have EQ2 system, which I personally don't know, and I apologize. We'll put that in there as a 4th. So if you're telling me, you know, what system you would like to do. So Dave, which system would you pick out of those 4? EQ2, individual, round, or need before greed, or just wide open?
I go with the way it was in original EverQuest, just leave it wide open. But
okay,
like I would like some system in it for just the junk stuff and regular items. It's round robin because that's less things that we got to worry about.
Okay.
So, you know, you just click and it's automatically sorted, you move on. But for anything above that, then just leave it like how it was in EverQuest. Let the party decide how to do it. And if someone ninjas it, well, then word will spread.
Okay. DP?
Personally, I'd like to see a need before greed. But obviously, you know, that has such huge flaws like basically every other system. But, you know, the option to choose either, you know, a round robin or a need before greed, you know, or, you know, as long as a party decides on it beforehand, I guess. But yeah, for me, you know, need before greed.
Okay. Solitude?
I would probably stick with the EQ2 concept. I mean, it's kind of like a need before greed, but it does have the options where the group leader can control, you know, the things in there as well.
Okay. Cool. Yusuf?
Yeah, I'm good with either. I'm used to the EQ2 loot from playing it so long. Open or EQ2, I'm fine with it. EQ2, you could leave it open. If I remember correctly, you could leave it open. Round robin, need before greed, master loot. It had all those options plus the auto split. So
yeah.
Okay.
Probably EQ2.
So EQ2 kind of had the whole picture in there, the whole suite you could choose from?
Yeah, you could, when you started the group, you could set the option.
Okay. Well, all right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast here. So, guys, I appreciate everybody stopping by on PantheonRadio.com. Make sure you go download the app on your phone if you haven't already. Appreciate the guys here, and Solitude as the girl here for us tonight and having the conversation. I can't thank you all enough for showing up and hanging out with us. It's one of those deals where I like getting other people's opinions. It helps me out. It helps the community out. I think it's just a good way to share ideas and get them out there. So thanks everybody in the chat as well for throwing out ideas and helping out with the conversation tonight. Loot is, to me, going to be one of those things where hopefully it becomes a non-factor. That's the goal for me when it comes to looting. I want it to not be thought about or not really be even an issue going forward. So whatever loot system works in that way, that's what I'm looking for. You know, I want one that it becomes where it's not a big deal. It's just, it is. We go forward with it. We don't have issues with it. We can work with it. And again, it's just, it's not an issue. It's not a factor. It's not a real big problem or anything that comes up in conversation on a, you know, group by group basis. That's my idea. Now, is that perfect? Maybe not. But that's my idea. I know other people have other ideas. So if you do have other ideas, please let me know. I'm going to post the video on YouTube and make sure the podcast is there so everybody can go check that out. And I apologize. I've actually got the other video sitting there waiting to be published right now. So I'll get that done here in just a second for Wednesday's night discussion. But we'll make sure the video is out there. So if anybody has any comments or suggestions on loot systems that they would like to share, please let me know in the comments on the YouTube video. And then again, tune in for Pantheon Radio every Wednesday and Friday for more podcast discussions. I'm going to go ahead and shut it down for tonight. Again, guys, I can't thank you all enough for showing up and hanging out during the podcast. Great time. If you want to hang on Twitch for a minute, I'll be right back. Thanks, guys.